Hi gang, so tonight's video we're going to focus on Hinduism and Buddhism. Now Hinduism and Buddhism are both different from the other major religions of the world in two aspects. One, their geography. They are centrally located, or they began rather, in India. And two is the belief in God or multiple gods. The three major monotheistic religions believe obviously in only one God, whereas the Hinduism is technically polytheistic and Buddhism doesn't really have any gods at all. Okay, so first of all, Hinduism began on the Indian subcontinent between the years 4000 and 2500 BCE. Now, that's a really long time frame of the development of a religion, but the unique thing about this is that it developed amongst this group of people, the Aryan peoples. Okay, now Aryans, most of us think of what Hitler wanted. The perfect Aryan, blonde hair, blue-eyed people. Well, that wasn't actually what the Aryans were. He kind of took that name and he manipulated it to fit what he wanted. Well, Aryans are actually a group of people that originated from India and around the Indus River Valley. Well, the Aryan peoples developed an oral tradition. Okay, Hinduism developed using an oral tradition, which means the customs and practices were spoken down and the beliefs were spoken and passed on through leaders that way. There are other religions that also are passed down like this, but this is the last of the major religions that developed on an oral tradition. Eventually, these beliefs were written down in two significant religious texts, the Vedas and the Upanishads, and those are the holy texts. Now, there are two central parts of Hinduism, okay, and one of those is the caste system. Okay, the Aryan caste system was a way that they organized their society. Now, tonight, I'm just going to introduce you to the concepts, and tomorrow we're going to break it down, and we're going to really get into the caste system itself. But the caste system, I want you to think about a pyramid. At the very top of the pyramid are the Brahmins, or the priests, and they're the ones that obviously guide people toward religion and dictate their lives. Next come a group called the Kshatriyas, warriors. These are the warriors or the rulers, the ones who fight, the ones who maintain order, and the ones who run society. So they have a few more people than the Brahmins or the priests. Next, you have the Vaisyas, the merchants, farmers, artisans, the people who actually make money in the country, okay, or in the world, and the people who make up a large chunk of the population, okay, and these are people working to make money. All right, next we've got manual laborers, the Sudras. These are the ones on which everybody else stands. Everybody else makes money based on the manual workers, the people digging the ditches, people actually plowing the fields for the land-owning farmer, okay? And at the very bottom, you have a group called the Untouchables, or the Dalit. We're going to read about the Dalit tomorrow, but these Untouchables were responsible for all of their dirty work. Now, the thing about the Aryan caste system is that your group or your caste, what you were born into, dictated, at least in that point in history, prior to 1500 at least, your job in life. And now that doesn't really apply today. And so there's been a lot of modern reform taken and some changes made to this system. Well, this really also dictates some things about the Hindu belief system. And the Hindu belief system, I want you to think about it as kind of like a hamster wheel. And we're going to get into this in a lot more detail tomorrow, but it also plays a role with the caste, okay? So there are a couple basic beliefs. One, the issue or concept of Brahman. You'll write this down tomorrow. Don't worry about. Again, something else, the concept of Atman. That's an individual soul. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. Reincarnation is the belief that you are reborn again. Your soul is reincarnated or given to something else. Karma are the actions that move you forward or backwards into the belief system or on that hamster wheel. Moksha is a concept that has a lot of importance, and that is the point at which you achieve enlightenment, according to Buddhists, or you have become, your soul, your Atman, becomes one with Brahman. But again, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. So let's talk about the gods. Hinduism is technically polytheistic, but that means that Hindus have many gods. But in reality, it's really just multiple forms of one singular god. Okay, so the way I want you to think about it is that in Christianity, Christians have one God. Okay, we have God, but the God takes three faces: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that's how I want you to think about Hinduism. It's really very similar to that. Well, Hinduism, the three main gods are Brahma, the creator, Siva or Shiva, the destroyer, and lastly but not least, you've got Vishnu, the preserver. So we've got one who creates life, one who destroys life, and one that carries life on and continues it. And we'll get into more detail about the belief system tomorrow and how specifically Hinduism affects people's lives tomorrow. But what we're going to focus on now is we're going to take a few minutes to learn about Hinduism. Buddhism, rather. Okay, so Hinduism began with a guy, Siddhartha Gautama, who lived from 560 to 490 BCE. The founder of Hinduism was a guy, Siddhartha Gautama. Now, he was known as the Buddha or the Enlightened One, and Buddha or Siddhartha was a prince, and his father kept him very sheltered. And long story short, Siddhartha snuck out, and he saw all the pain in the world, and he said, "This isn't right. My teachings of Hinduism don't really jive with this, don't go along with this." And so there's got to be a greater answer. And so when he meditated, he became enlightened upon this. And there are several major differences between Buddhism and Hinduism. So Hinduism leads to Buddhism. Siddhartha was a Hindu before he became the Buddha and became enlightened and then spreading his beliefs. Okay. One, there are no real gods or deities. So that's why I say some people call it an atheistic religion. The Buddha is not a god. Siddhartha Gautama is a prophet. He is the enlightened one. He is not a god. And that's an important distinction that we need to make there. And the important thing we need to know is he is not a god. Two, Buddhists don't believe in nirvana. Or I'm sorry, in Brahma. Okay, so their soul doesn't unite with Brahma. Their soul reaches nirvana or a state of perfect enlightenment. Okay, that's the goal. Okay, is to reach nirvana. A third major difference between them is that Buddhists reject the caste system. They do not believe that people should be stuck in one life and structured in one life in one role in life. They don't believe in that. Okay, so central to Buddhism and how it affects their lives are four noble truths. And the four noble truths are essentially what life is really about. Number one, noble truth, first understanding is that life is suffering. Your life is about pain. Your life is and suffering is caused by a lot of different things, but life is about suffering, okay, or desire. Two, suffering is caused, and the pain we see in life is caused by our desire for things and our want for things and our resistance to change. We don't like change. Humans don't like change, and that's one of the central understandings of Buddhism. Okay, three, we can end our suffering by ending our desire or attachment. That's another way that Buddhists often phrase the word desire is through the word attachment. Okay, and fourth, we can end this desire or attachment and our suffering by following the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path, the way I want you to think about it, is that the Eightfold Path is kind of like the Ten Commandments and how they relate to Jewish people and to Christians. Okay, so the Eightfold Path is how you get to nirvana. Okay, that's how you reach enlightenment. Okay, so number one is right understanding. Right understanding is essentially the belief that knowing the Four Noble Truths and understanding that they are good and that they are true. Number two, right thought. Right thought means that you are determining to focus and practice the Buddhist faith. Okay, keeping your mind right, you're practicing Buddhist faith. Okay, number three is right speech. Okay, you are not going to slander, you're not going to gossip, you're not going to lie, you're not going to say anything untrue or be abusive with your language or your words. Truth number four, right action or right conduct is how this is sometimes phrased. You are going to adhere to the idea of nonviolence. Okay, Buddhists are nonviolent. They don't believe in bringing harm to people. Buddhists are also vegetarians. So they don't eat meat because since souls are reincarnated, you don't want to eat the soul of someone else or eat someone else's body. Okay, so you do good things. You also refrain from stealing or doing other bad things or killing. Okay, right livelihood. Your way of making a living should not bring harm to others. Often that includes slaughtering animals, but that also includes making sure that your job does not force you to violate others or do bad things to other people in one way or another. Next is right effort or right mental attitude. Avoid negative thoughts, negative emotions. Detach yourself and avoid anger or jealousy. That's where the whole detachment idea comes in. You want to detach yourself from these earthly feelings. Nextly is right mindfulness, which means being mindful of your thoughts, being mindful at all times of your actions, and making sure that you're acting with purpose and acting in control of your thoughts and feelings. And last but not leastly is right concentration. We should use meditation in order to concentrate our focus and our mindfulness so that we can become enlightened according to Buddhist thought. Okay, so there's a guy who's responsible for the spread of Buddhism, and the spread of Buddhism is led by a guy named Ashoka. Okay, I'm sorry, I backed up there. I made a mistake. You will find that I make them all the time. Well, Ashoka is the one who spread Buddhism. Okay, and he was an Indian prince, lived from 273 to 232 BC. Okay, now he began life as a Hindu, and he was a Mauryan emperor, okay, from the Mauryan dynasty. And as the Mauryans, what they did in India, they began to conquer all of Southeast Asia. And so what he did was, as a warrior, he conquered all of Southeast Asia. And then as a king, he's going through and he's seeing all the harm and all the bad things that he caused. And he says, you know, this isn't right. And so after he conquered and expanded his empire, he converted to Buddhism. And after he converted to Buddhism, he controlled all of South Asia and Southeast Asia. He converted those areas as well, and he built what are called stupas, okay, in order to spread Buddhist teaching and Buddhist thought. And so that's how he spread Buddhism. So he started out as Hindu, conquered the area, and then he said, ooh, I caused a lot of bad things to happen. And then because he converted to Buddhism, he didn't require that they all become Buddhists, but he enlightened them and he taught them, the people in the areas that he conquered, and enlighten them into Buddhist thought. Okay? So, have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.